So Over 50 is hosting TnT sewing patterns for the month of September, and I thought it'd be cool to drop by in and give my 2 cents on my tried and true sewing patterns. Hey Stitchers, it's your girl Kris. Welcome on in if this is the first time you are clicking one of my videos, or welcome back if you are an OG. Now, Sew Over 50 over on Instagram is highlighting tried and true sewing patterns for the month of September. And I figured, why not come in and share my tried and true sewing patterns, but do it indie style. So for today's video, I'm going to be sharing, I think, maybe 7 indie patterns that I consider to be tried and true. Now, I know a lot of you guys probably think of tried and true as being patterns that you have sewn a half a dozen times, but in my case, I am not really, or I have not traditionally been a serial pattern repeater. And if I find myself making up a pattern more than once, then that is pretty rare. Although, to be honest, over the last year or two, I have been making more of a conscious effort to reuse some of the patterns that I have used in the past. I tend to put a lot of work into fitting my sewing patterns. I have to trace them and then do my fitting adjustments. And I'm thinking, why have I done all that work to make up a pattern only one time? So I'm trying to change that a little bit more. And so for the patterns that I'm going to be talking to you about here today, most of them I have sewn 2 times, a couple of them I have sewn 3 times, and there's probably one pattern that I have sewn almost a half a dozen times, and that is unheard of for your girl. Now, the first pattern that I wanted to talk to you guys about today is the Friday Pattern Company Saguaro trousers. This one is definitely tried and true because I have made it, I think, 5 times. I think it's 5 times. I shared a video with you guys previously here on the channel, and I had shown you my first 4 versions, and then I went ahead and made another one. It is a black and white with a sprinkling of gold. It was some fabric that I had used for my Astrid vest, which is also here on the channel. And I wanted to make that into a fun and sexy suit, so I made myself a pair of trousers. And the most obvious trouser pattern for me to jump on was the saguaro trouser pattern. Now, over my sewing journey, I have not been the greatest at sewing trousers, and that is because until about last year, I struggled immensely with getting trousers to fit me correctly. Sewing them up, I don't find to be too difficult in terms of the construction, but when it comes to nailing the fit, whoo, child, sewing trousers is a headache, or it has been a headache for your girl. I am slowly unlocking the fitting adjustments that I need to do, and I've come pretty close to being very satisfied with my saguaro trousers now. And so they definitely meet the criteria for a tried and true pattern. Now, the saguaro trousers comes in a size extra small up to, I think, 5XL. That is the Friday Pattern Company standard fitting range. And so it is a very size inclusive pattern. It is designed to be an elastic waist trouser. It does have slanted pockets, and the length is meant to be right around the ankle. But you guys, I have a big problem with ankle length trousers. I need my trousers to be sweeping the floor, you guys. I don't like trousers that stop around my ankles, especially when they're designed to be wide leg trousers, as in the case of the saguaro trousers. It just feels to me like high water vibes, like I've stolen somebody's trousers. And for me, you guys, that is not a good look. Now, to each his own. Some people probably love that, but I have gone ahead and adjusted the length of my saguaro trousers every single time that I have made them. I have not been consistent with the lengths because sometimes I did not have enough fabric and had to do a hem facing. Other times I had a little bit more fabric, but still not as much as I would have liked. So they're long, but not as long as I would like, and so on and so on and so on. I think the last pair that I made, I lengthened my trousers by 8 inches. Yes, you guys, you heard me correctly, a whopping 8 inches. But I did do a 2-inch hem because I wanted to have that substance down at my leg. And I feel like it helps the leg line to lay a little bit better. So that is what I went ahead and did. Now let me just scoot to the side so I can go ahead and pop in a picture of my last version of the saguaro trousers. I will not bore you guys by sharing every single version that I have made because, as I said, if you want more information on the pattern itself and on the iterations that I have done, including all my fitting adjustments, then make sure you run and check out the video that will pop up right here. Right, so that is pattern number 1. The second indie pattern that I consider to be a tried and true pattern is the chalk and notch Aria blouse. You guys, I love this blouse. However, I have hacked it ever so slightly by omitting the elastic that goes into the arm and into the waistline of this pattern. I just prefer a loose, floaty blouse in a really nice drapey fabric using this pattern. And I can get this pattern squeezed out of a yard of fabric. Once it is 60 inches wide fabric, I can get it squeezed out for the size that I have to make up. Now, I did make this pattern up originally way back, I think in 2023 or 2022, I'm not quite sure right now, but I had actually tested this pattern for chalk and notch. So the first iteration that I made, I did go ahead and include the elastic, but the 2 versions that I have since made, I have omitted the elastic. I just like the look of the blouse, and it means that I can dress it up and wear it to work, stick it into a pencil skirt or something like that, or I can wear it casually over a pair of jeans. What can I say? It's a simple pattern, it's a simple silhouette, very clean lines, and it works well in my wardrobe. So that would be pattern number 2, the chalk and notch Aria. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this pattern is also considered to be size inclusive or almost size inclusive, because when I had done some research earlier on this year, the size inclusive sizing range goes up to at least a 60-inch bust and or hip. Now, I can't recall right now whether the Aria goes all the way up to 60 inches, but if it doesn't, it comes fairly close to being size inclusive. And the chalk and notch Aria also comes in 2 different bust cup options, a B cup and a D cup. So that is also an aspect of inclusivity, at least in my mind, because all boobs are not created equally. And if it means that I do not have to do a full bust adjustment, or the likelihood of doing a full bust adjustment is reduced because there are cup sizes in the patterns, then I definitely think that that is a positive thing. Not that I mind doing a full bust adjustment, because I don't. And if I'm not mistaken, I probably did do one in this pattern anyway. But you guys, at least you have the option of 2 bust cups. Right, so that is pattern number 2. Moving on to pattern number 3, I think that will be the Sew Over It London Ava skirt. Off the top of my head, I have made this pencil skirt at least 3 times. Way back when, I made it in a green fabric, a solid green, like an emerald green or like a forest green color. And I love this skirt, you guys. It has a very simple silhouette. It is a pencil skirt. It has dots to the front, dots to the back, and a waistband. There's not much to say about it, but it is very practical for me in my work life. I love it. So I've made 2 versions that are work appropriate. Other than that green version, I did make up a second version last year, October or thereabout, in the Minerva Inky Blues linen fabric. I had made my Jessica blazer out of that fabric, and I had enough left over, just enough to squeeze out a matching mini skirt. And so I pulled out my Sew Over It Ava skirt and I sewed it up. The other iteration that I have done, I actually hacked the pattern to have like, what do you call that? It had some style lines that I had introduced into the pattern, and that is because I wanted to color block it using different shades of denim. And you guys, I loved the final skirt. I'll see if I can find a picture of that one. I'll go ahead and pop it in right here. It was really cute. It doesn't get as much wear as I would like, just because other than going to church and to work and to the grocery store, your girl doesn't do anything. Your girl doesn't go anywhere. My social life is like at a 0. And so items like that don't tend to get as much wear as I would like, but I really, really do love that skirt. Now, the Sew Over It Ava skirt is not a size inclusive pattern. I'm not sure, to be honest, if Sew Over It has made a move to being more size inclusive. I haven't purchased any of their recent patterns, not for the last couple of years or so, just because I find that their patterns, they're nice, but most of them don't really fit with my vibe. The Ava skirt definitely does because I can wear it to work, but other than that, there are one or two other Sew Over It London patterns that I own, but I haven't really been keeping up to date with their new releases. So if anybody happens to know whether Sew Over It is now moving towards being more size inclusive, then leave me a comment down below. I'm sure we can help other people in the sewing community discover some new to them pattern companies, and it always helps to know whether they are size inclusive or not. So 3 patterns down, another 4 to go. The 4th pattern I want to talk about has to be the Pattern Emporium Take the Chance dress. Guys, I discovered Pattern Emporium earlier this year and I fell down their rabbit hole, seriously. I loved their patterns. I bought 5 of them on a whim without even testing one of them up in terms of their fit, their sizing, their instructions, nothing like that. I was just going through their catalog of patterns, and I did have to limit myself to 5 because there were many more that I considered buying, but I thought, Kris, be practical. Suppose you buy them and you absolutely hate them. And so I probably should have just bought 1, maybe 2. But as I said, I went ahead and bought 5, including their Take the Chance dress. And you guys, I made up this pattern back to back. And that is unheard of for me. Even in those times when I have remade patterns, there's usually some time in between those makes. But this time I finished sewing version 1 and went straight ahead and cut out version 2 and sewed her up. I love, love, love this pattern. The only thing that I want to do to this pattern going forward is to go ahead and do a full bust adjustment. Now, their pattern does come with 2 or 3 cup options, but they're not in the way that I'm accustomed to them being presented, as in a C cup, a B cup, a D cup, or something like that. It has like FBA 1, FBA 2, FBA 3, and then in their instructions, they tell you how to go about choosing the bodice front piece that you should use based on your bust measurements. I was a little bit iffy, you guys, and when I looked at the finished garment measurements, I decided to use the standard front bodice. I made it up and I thought, ooh, it fits. I don't see any pulling across my chest. But when I looked at my photographs and videos after I had completed my make, I realized in my second version, especially, it wasn't so evident in version number 1, but for the second version, I could see that it was hiking up ever so slightly at my center front bodice. And that is a huge indicator that you need to do a full bust adjustment. Now, on a side note, if you are new to doing full bust adjustments and you want to know a little bit more about how to do it, or even how to know if you need to do it, then make sure you check out the video that will pop up right here. During the month of August, I did do a Fit Happen series. Every Tuesday, I shared with you guys a different fitting adjustment, giving you information on how you know whether you might need this adjustment, and then demonstrating how to actually perform it on your flat paper pattern. And the standard full bust adjustment with a double darted bodice was one such video. So if you have been hesitant about trying out a full bust adjustment, then make sure you run ahead and check out that video. I promise you, I promise you, I promise you, it will help, and it does make a huge difference. Now, other than that adjustment for my Take the Chance dress, and I figure if I had followed what the instructions said about how to choose your bodice size, then I probably would not have needed to do the full bust adjustment. And of course, I could go ahead and print off the FBA 1 piece now and do all the adjustments. But in my mind, it's easier to take the pattern piece that I have already adjusted and just go ahead and do an FBA. It doesn't take me very long anyway. I know exactly what to do. I'm very comfortable with doing it. And so I think I'm going to do it for version 3. I almost sold up version 3 right after version 2. I had in my mind another color blocked version, like a print block this time. Well, a color print block, whatever. But I held back. I felt almost like I was being a one-trick pony, and so I did not sew up the third version when I intended to. But you bet your bottom dollar that sooner rather than later, your girl is going to sew up another Take the Chance dress because it is perfect. Now, in terms of size inclusivity, I think Pattern Emporium is considered to be size inclusive. If it doesn't hit the 60-inch mark, it's like 59 or something very, very close. But off the top of my head, I do think that they're size inclusive. I will go ahead and do a double check, and then I'll pop a little notation here on the screen just to confirm that they are in fact size inclusive. Right, 4 patterns, on to number 5. The 5th pattern I want to talk to you guys about is another tried and true pattern, but it is one that I don't really have photographs of. Like, why? It is because it is the True Bias Marlow sweater. You guys, I love, love, love both iterations of my sweater. I had made up version 1 way back when, I think, and I made it up in a forest green sweater knit fabric that I had gotten from Style Maker Fabric, and I took it to work, hung it on the back of my chair, and wore it almost every single day. Now, whereas I live in a very hot climate, and you're probably thinking, why am I making sweaters? My office is cold, you guys, like super cold. And I find myself grabbing for a sweater no matter what I wear to work. Even when I wear a blazer, to be honest, I will take my blazer off and put my sweater on because it's just so comfortable and cozy at the office. So after I had worn version 1 time and time and time and time again, I thought I was in need of a second iteration just to mix things up a bit. And so I made the second version in a navy blue. It's a chunkier sweater knit, I think. And I loved it, you guys. I just love this pattern. It is amazing. It is an oversized cardigan. It's very easy to sew. So if you're not really accustomed to sewing knit fabrics, your first foray into sewing knit fabrics might be this sweater, because I promise you, it is pretty simple. Very few seam lines. You can technically put it all together on your serger. That is, if you are omitting the pockets. It does have some patch pockets right at the front, and you do need to top stitch those down using a sewing machine. But in terms of the actual seams, I think you can do all of them using your serger. I might have done most of my seams using a serger. I might have switched to my sewing machine at some point. I can't really remember all the details right now, but trust me when I say this is a great sweater pattern. Now, True Bias drafts for, or they drafted for, I'm not sure if this still is the case, a C-cup, and that is perfect for me because that means I do not need to do a full bust adjustment. I do not need to fit like anything around the bust area, other than in other patterns from True Bias, raising or lowering the dart as appropriate, but it does eliminate the need for a full bust adjustment. So if you are a C-cup girly like myself and you have not sewn any True Bias patterns, then you might want to go ahead and check it out. You just might. Now, when it comes to tried and true, pattern number 6 has to be the Love Notions Arlington sweater. Yes, again, another sweater, but I have never worn mine as a traditional sweater. As a matter of fact, I'm not even sure why it's called a sweater. Maybe because it's meant to be made up in things like sweater knits and so on, but it's actually a blouse and a dress pattern. I have made up the dress on 2 different occasions, and I have made the blouse on 1 occasion, although I do not still have the blouse in my wardrobe. I had gifted it to a friend, and I never made up a second blouse, although I probably should because it's great. But I have made up 2 dresses since then. Now, the first dress that I made was a black and white striped dress. And when I tell you this one is constantly on rotation in my work wardrobe, believe me, you guys, I wear this at least once or twice every month. And for me, that is a lot. It's really, really, really comfortable. I think it's nice and chic. It's very office appropriate without being super boring. And so it ticks a lot of boxes for your girl. Now, I did do the mock neck option. And initially I was like, I don't know if I want to make this pattern because it's probably going to be uncomfortable. I don't really like things around my neck. But when I made up the blouse, I realized that it was fitting quite comfortably. I did not feel like it was choking. It did not feel uncomfortable. And so I've made up, as I said, 2 other versions. Now, the second dress that I have made, I made it up within the last like 2 or 3 months or so. I've made it up fairly recently. And I made it up using a pink and purple and white knit fabric that was gifted to me by my sister-in-law. Once I saw it, I was like, ooh, I know exactly what I want to make out of this fabric. It was another Love Notions Arlington. The one thing that I will say about this pattern, depending on the fabric that I use, I have had to take in my side seams and my center back seam ever so slightly just to give me a little bit more shape. It is designed to be like a boxy fit sweater dress or a blouse, and I like a little bit more shaping, especially in my dresses. And so I have gone in on my versions and just taken in the side seam at the waistline marking ever so slightly just to give your girl a little bit more shape. And I love it, you guys, and I can see myself making up many more Love Notions Arlingtons in the future. Now, you might have known, if you have been here before, that I was a Love Notions ambassador. I am no longer a Love Notions ambassador, but I still do like this pattern. Now, the Love Notions sizes comes from extra small up to 5X, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, they do hit the size inclusive marking. They do have great pattern instructions. Some of their patterns seem on first look to be quite basic. You probably think, nothing special about those. But in the past, I think I have demonstrated quite nicely here on the channel and over on my Instagram as well, just how great those patterns can translate into the wardrobe if you choose the right fabrics, you guys. Fabric choice is really and truly everything. Right, so we've gone through 6 patterns so far, and I have one more tried and true pattern that I wanted to share with you guys, and it is a swimsuit pattern. No surprise there. Again, if you have been around my channel long enough, you would have gleaned that I am a little bit obsessed with sewing swimwear. That was not always the case, you guys. Up to last year, I hated it. I hated everything about sewing swimsuits. But then I discovered Edgewater Avenue, and that just changed my life, you guys. And now I am pretty good, I think, at sewing swimwear, and I have sewn at least a dozen swimsuits this year alone. No, all of them are not for me. I do not have all of them in my wardrobe. What am I doing with a dozen swimsuits? That would be a little bit ridiculous. Even though I am an island girly, I actually don't go to the beach that often to warrant me sewing up 12 swimsuits for myself. And that is the only reason I have not made another iteration of the pattern that I'm going to be sharing with you guys today. It is the Frankie swimsuit. It is a one-piece swimsuit, and I have made this pattern up 2 different times for myself. The first version that I did it as part of my fabric roulette challenge that I started back in January. The aim was to put 12 fabrics on a roulette wheel and to spin it every month and then sew up the fabric that was chosen. Now, I started off this challenge with such vigor, you guys. But by April, when I left and went on holiday, all of that went to shit. And I have not spun my wheel since then. And in fact, the last fabric that I had chosen from my wheel is still actually on my dress form. I can see it from where I am, in a half-made dress. It is a Shelby dress by True Bias that I hacked to remove the center front buttons, replacing it with a back. And I don't know, you guys, I ran out of steam, came back from holiday, was more excited about doing other things, and I never got back to it, and I never got back to my wheel. I digress. So the first fabric that I spun was a swimsuit fabric, and I thought, oh my gosh, why is it that my first fabric for fabric roulette is a swimsuit fabric? Bang on into January, I was making a swimsuit. I was a little bit worried, to be honest, because at that time I had not bitten the swimsuit making bug just yet. But once I finished this make, I was like, ooh, oh my God, it looks incredible. And that's what started it, you guys. That is what started my obsession. Now, the Frankie is a one-piece swimsuit, and it does come with a bust dart. No, I had never seen a bust dart in a swimsuit before. Maybe because my girls are not that big. I am a sewing C cup. I didn't even think a bust dart would be required in a swimsuit. but you live and you learn. And having the bust start in the Frankie swimsuit is, oh, it's genius, you guys. The fit of my Frankie swimsuit was almost perfect, I tell you. I did go ahead and make 1 or 2 fitting adjustments. I remember doing a sloping shoulder adjustment. I remember doing a sway back adjustment. And I also remember lowering the bust dart and probably raising the waistline as well. And I think after I made iteration number 1, I discovered that I needed to narrow the crotch line ever so slightly. And so for my second iteration, I did go ahead and do just that. And it's perfect. It fits me amazingly. It's not too long in my torso, which I have found in ready-to-wear swimsuits. I am quite short-waisted. And so in some of my ready-to-wear one pieces, I found some like bagging of fabric right around my waistline, especially at my center back. And I was like, why is this happening? But then when I learned to sew and started learning how to fit, I discovered that all proportions are not equal, and ready to wear doesn't really contemplate, in most cases, the short-waisted girly. The standard girly has, I guess, an average length torso. Mine is anything but. And so doing fitting adjustments, in my mind, invaluable, you guys. Even if you're not to the stage of doing the more complicated fitting adjustments, things like making sure that the bust line, the waistline, and the hip line of the pattern lines up with your body, that makes a huge, huge difference. Now, on the off chance that you need a little bit of extra help in terms of taking your measurements, learning how your proportions work and the effect that those have on your patterns, then be sure to go ahead and check out my measurements video. I shared 2 videos about fit. I had gone in depth, you guys, about measuring, ease, how to choose your starting size, how to adjust your pattern so that your bust, waist, and hip line up with your body. Listen, so much information in those 2 videos. So I would definitely encourage you, if you have a minute, to go ahead and check them out. Even if you are a seasoned sewist, if you have not really been that keen on fitting before, then I definitely think you can still have a lot to learn from those videos. I'm not just saying it because it's me, but I am saying it because it's me, because I'm very, very anal when it comes to fit. I don't always get it right, and I confess I'm not an expert. I am not professionally trained or anything like that, but I have screwed up tons and tons and tons of fabric in the past, and I have made muslin after muslin after muslin, toile after toile after toile. And by doing that early on in my sewing journey, I have unlocked a lot of knowledge, I think, about fitting. And I love sharing it with you guys. So don't be afraid to reach out if you have a fitting question, but definitely be sure to go ahead and check out my fitting videos. Right. In terms of size inclusivity, Edgewater Avenue is not size inclusive. I think she has made some strides in her newer patterns to expand the size ranges. I think the Frankie has like a standard size and an expanded size range, but I still don't think it goes up to the 60-inch marking. I'll go ahead as usual and double check, and then I'll drop the notation here on screen because I want you guys to have as much information as possible to help you decide whether you should check out the pattern companies that I have shared in today's video. Right, so those are 7 of my tried and true indie sewing patterns. Even though I have not made, as I said, half a dozen of each of these patterns, I do love them. And I do intentionally limit how much of a garment I make because I like variety, you guys. I like to have different silhouettes in my wardrobe, and I get bored very easily. So in terms of constructing things, I like to take on different patterns because the constructions are going to be different and it keeps me interested in sewing. If I were just sewing up the same pattern over and over and over and over and over and over again, I probably would get bored of myself. That being said, I'm definitely going to sew up these patterns again sometime in the future. I don't know when, but I definitely am going to pull out each and every one of these patterns because they really, really are perfect for my wardrobe. Now, if you have not checked out the TnT Sewing Pattern Challenge over on Instagram, definitely go ahead and do so. Sew Over 50 is an amazing community. They are led by sewists who are over the age of 50. They show time and time again that there's no age limit on sewing because these are some really, really dope makers. I want to give a special shout out to Sandy. She has always supported all of my pattern challenges. She shares and reshares tons of information about my challenges over on Instagram. And so in addition to really wanting to talk about my tried and true patterns, I really did also want to support Sandy and the Sew Over 50 team by bringing you guys today's video. It is not sponsored in any way, but I think hand scratch hand, you guys know that saying, or maybe not, it is a local saying. But when people pour into you, it's nice to pour back into them as well, some way, somehow. So those are my tried and true patterns. Drop me some comments down below and let me know, what are your tried and true patterns? Are any of the patterns that I shared with you guys today considered your tried and trues? Are there others that you might want to add to the conversation? I always do like hearing about new patterns and new pattern companies, especially with what's going on in the Big Five right now. Now is a great time to start exploring and really delving into more indie patterns. And yeah, that's what I want to do. I am still sewing up my Big Five patterns because I am very, very familiar with their pattern blocks. So it's easier for me to make adjustments to their patterns. Most of the times I don't need to do a toile anymore. And that's kind of what keeps me going back to the Big Five patterns. It's just laziness, you guys. That is the long and short of it, laziness. When I try a new pattern, then I have to do more measurements. I have to use my intuition a little bit more. Otherwise, I have to sew up a toile. And I'm really not about that life anymore. I was at one point where I sewed up a toile for every single thing I made. But I'm kind of past that. It's not really a good thing, but I do it anyway. Now, just in case you have no idea what's going on with the Big Five saga, I have reported about that here on the channel as well. The last update I gave you guys on the channel, I'll leave the link to that one in here. Spoiler alert, or maybe I should say disclaimer. I was brutally honest with my opinion on what was going on in the sewing community and in the Big Five saga, like the effect that that might have on sewists. So if you are particularly sensitive, you might want to avoid that video and click on another of my other videos that is probably going to be a lot more lighthearted and inspiring than that video, because that video, you guys, is the raw truth from my perspective. Enough said. Now, if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to go ahead and give your girl a thumbs up. And if you have gotten to this point in this video and you're not a subscriber, then please consider subscribing, joining your girl's YouTube sewing family. I love having you guys around. It means the world to me to know that there are people out there interested in anything that I have to say at all, interested in my sewing. And it's just great to feel a sense of community. Right, you guys, that is all I needed to share with you for today's video. I might come back and share my tried and true Big Five patterns. We'll see how the month plays out. I do have a couple other things that I need to get done, so we'll see. Oh, one last thing I wanted to say. Oh my gosh, I have gotten myself a new ring light. You might have seen a couple weeks ago, I left a community post. I was in tears over my ring light, which had broken for the second time. Now, the first time, hubby was able to patch it up. And so I hadn't ordered a new one. I thought, oh, I could get some more usage out of it. And then it broke, you guys, snapped right off the stand. And I was trying to wing it. I was trying to hang the light over nails, have my husband hold it up in order for me to be able to film a couple other videos. But I am happy to report that I now have a new ring light. So I wanted to say a special thank you to those of you who bought me a coffee or coffee, however you pronounce it. That just goes right back into the running of my channel. It is not mandatory by any means, but I really, really do appreciate it. So I am officially back in good business. Right. So no, that is all I needed to share with you. So until next time, you guys, stay calm, stay cool, stay safe, and go check out Sew Over 50 over on Instagram. Peace.